A charged-up U.S. hockey team on its way to meet Czechoslovakia. The American college kids were as high as their flag on the 4th of July. They took a 3-0, then 4-1 lead, lost it, then regained the lead on this goal by Scott Fusco. But then the more experienced Czechs broke the hearts of Team USA, coming from behind again to win. Hockey is a game of emotional peaks and valleys. From the summit, the Americans had fallen to the depths. Could Coach Dave Peterson recharge them for tonight's much-anticipated meeting with the Soviet Union? Listen to the players.
Yeah, I think it's quite an honor personally to be playing. This is my first time ever against a Russian team, so I'm real happy about the moment, and I'm just going to cherish every minute I can.
Whatever it comes down to, whether it's sports or anything, it's always a big rival, and we're going to be really ready for it. We'll be really pumped up for it.
Well, being in the Olympics, you know, you're representing your country and you're playing against all the other countries, but then, you know, Russia's something special. There always seems to be a special rivalry between the United States and Russia and everything, from politics to sports, so, you know, we're going in there with a little extra.
I guess when we play the Soviets, I guess there is sort of a sense of pride playing for your country. It makes the game maybe a little bit more important in that sense. You're real excited to go out there and wear the red, white, and blue.
A meeting at the summit tonight. Herman Zurbriggen will swing us now until we begin our live coverage of that hockey game between the United States and the Soviet Union. There is the Saddle Dome. Everybody just about in place. Latecomers trying to get to their seats. Red, white, and blue faces everywhere. You think they're a little excited about this game that's coming up? It should really be terrific. A capacity crowd of almost 20,000, and the charged-up American kids taking their shot at the Soviet Union for the first time in 8 years in the Olympics. Listen to that. Does that chant remind you of something? We have a couple of minutes, though, before we're going to go out to the Saddle Dome. And, you know, with all the things that have been going on around here, we really haven't had too much chance to get to know this city that has been so...
And, Jim, a capacity crowd to look on, nearly 20,000. As you stated before, the United States and the Soviet Union did not meet in Sarajevo in 1984. It's the first time they faced each other in the Olympics since 1980. And it's interesting to think back to 1980, and on that night, so many of these players we will see here tonight were 13, 14 years old, but they obviously all knew what took place on that famous night in Lake Placid. Ken, we have discussed in the first two games the United States playing an attacking and aggressive style. It stood them in good stead the other night for 2 periods. They had the lead against Czechoslovakia. Eventually, they lost, though. Can the United States afford to play that sort of game tonight against the Soviets and win?
I don't think so. I think that, just as we stated the other night, energy takes you only so far. You can't go all out for all 60 minutes and attacking all the time. You need to be able to play in the lulls, and the U.S. team has to be able to do that tonight.
Now, Dave Peterson has made a switch. You are a former goaltender, a 5-time Vezina Trophy winner. Tonight, Dave Peterson goes with Chris Terreri after Mike Richter had started the first 2 games.
Well, Dave Peterson's thinking in this case is that Chris Terreri has a record of good performances in championships, in the NCAA championships and in other big games. He had a rough time in the last 10 minutes of the game against Austria. It'll be somewhere in his mind he needs a good start, and the U.S. team is going to need to help him have that good start.
So Chris Terreri getting the start. In fact, Richter tonight is not even dressing for the game. John Blue, who has been the non-dressing number 3 goaltender, is the number 2 goaltender tonight. We know so many of you only watch hockey once every 4 years, so each time, or at least early on each time, there's an offside or there's an icing call, we will explain it for you. Offside, quite simply, is when you are attacking. Let's say the puck is at center ice and you begin to come across the blue line. The man with the puck has to be the first to cross. In other words, the puck must precede any other player. If somebody else, for instance, one of the wingers coming in with you, were to come across that blue line first, that would be offside. Another form of offside is a 2-line pass. We'll point that out the first time it happens. And then there is icing, where you shoot the puck from your half of the rink. In other words, from behind the center red line over the opposition's goal line. And then the defense goes back to touch it, and you'll have an icing call there. But it's interesting how when you think back to 1980, so many people who did not know anything at all about this great sport remember that one particular night. And one of the reasons, of course, they remember that particular night would be a goal that came at the 10-minute mark of the third period. Right here with the score tied 3-3, Mike Eruzione put it in. The U.S. held on. The final score that night was 4-3. United States, the U.S. was to go on to defeat Finland 2 days later to capture the gold medal and capture the hearts of an entire country. And there was the scene at that medal ceremony, Mike Eruzione, the team captain, summoning his teammates to the stand to accept their gold medals. And here he is now, live and in color 8 years later. Mike, put into words what the players on the ice feel like right now.
Well, you know, Al, it's interesting because I think a lot of people were a little concerned if this team could get ready to play after playing against Czechoslovakia and having a tough loss. The best thing that can happen to this team is they're playing the Soviet Union. They are excited, they're anxious, they remember what happened in 1980, and I'll tell you one thing, they are ready to play. Again, it's just a case, I think, of whether these guys are good enough. They're excited about the game. They had a very good practice the other day. And, you know, something about the Soviets that always put out the best in the American team. Even in the crowd here, you can see a few more flags being raised, a little more red, white, and blue, and a little more patriotism when we play the Soviets. And one thing that stands out in my mind most is that after 8 years, apparently we only played one game. That's all people remember, was the game against the Soviets. So this is a game tonight that's going to be big for this team. It's a game they have to play well. You're looking at Terreri on the left and Malikov on the right. And Chris Terreri, the type of goaltender that can play extremely well. He's got a history of playing well in big games, and hopefully it can happen tonight. Back to you, Al.
All right, Mike, and a slight smile creasing the face of 57-year-old Dave Peterson, who looks relaxed. Ken, we talked about the fact that Terreri starts tonight. We should point out that Yevgeny Beloshakin would be the Soviet goaltender, but he's been injured, and Milenkov again gets the start tonight. Sergei Milenkov.
Well, Beloshakin is really the goaltender that the Soviets have groomed as the heir to Tretiak. He is technically a good goaltender. He's had a lot of up and down moments. He has not yet become that heir, but as you have said, if he was well tonight, he would be in the net. But Milenkov has played both games so far for the Soviets. He has played fine, but he is a vulnerable goaltender, and he is somebody that we should be watching very carefully through the course of this game.
Referee tonight is from Finland, Antti Koskinen, and the linesmen are from Finland, Lasse Vanhanen, and Sweden, Anders Ekhagen. The United States and the Soviet Union, and so many people only remember Eruzione's goal in the end of the game at Lake Placid. Just to refresh you, it was 2-2 after the first period. Mark Johnson tied it with a second to play in the period. Soviets dominated the second period but scored just once. It was 3-2 going into the third. So 8 years later, the U.S. and the Soviet Union in the Olympics one more time. Corey Millen centering this line as we get set for action at the Saddle Dome. And Brian Leach moves it up ahead to Tony Granato, and the first shot on goal is an easy save for Milenkov. And the Soviets clear it the length of the ice. The icing is waved off as Brian Leach, number 2, the team captain for the United States, from Connecticut out of Boston College, up ahead to the fleet Tony Granato. And the Soviets move it back to center ice, where it's collected by Guy Gosselin, and then he loses the puck. And Makarov skates in. Makarov loses the puck in the slot, and the U.S. clears the zone as Corey Millen comes skating back along with Alan Bourbeau. Millen's shot is picked off to the right. Back to the point to Norton now, and the puck comes back across the blue line. There's a case of all of the Americans being into the offensive zone, the puck coming back over the blue line, offside.
Well, now, just before that offside,
it has the sophisticated styling of a...
Back with 18:52 to play in the first period. No score. The U.S. and the Soviet Union at the Saddle Dome. As Snuggerud's shot is a stick save by Milnikov. The U.S. pressuring in the corner. Donatelli is there. And the puck comes loose. As Snuggerud then centers it, Norton couldn't get his stick down, though. He was taken out of the play, and back to get it for the U.S. is Brown. Up ahead to Lane McDonald. In off the boards to Fusco. Fusco centering it, and a shot from the slot by McDonald. A save by Milnikov. Back out to center ice now.
At this stage in the game, teams are looking for little indicators with each other. The Soviet goaltender Milnikov has looked a little bit uncertain, and the Soviet players don't have an awful lot of confidence in him.
This is Terreri clearing it along the boards, up ahead to Lane McDonald. He's forechecked, but is able to get it out into the neutral zone. This is Peter Laviolette losing the puck at the Soviet blue line. Igor Stelnov, the defenseman number 4, to Bwikov. Into the corner now. Homutov skating around the net, looking for a centering pass. Bwikov picks the puck up. He's checked by Young, and the puck taken away nicely by Fusco, who clears it out to center ice. 2.5 minutes into the first period with no score. Picked up by Todd Okerlund, number 11, who's making his first appearance in the Olympics. He didn't dress for the first 2 games. As the Soviets regain possession, Homutov shooting it up ahead into the U.S. zone where Leach goes back to collect it.
Early on, the U.S. team is showing a much more sustainable kind of game.
This is Janney, backhander save, rebound shot wide.
They're taking the opportunity when they have it, but they're not pressing when they have very little chance.
U.S. with 3 shots on goal, the Soviets with none so far. 3 minutes, 10 seconds into the game, and up ahead to Chernik, who gets ridden out of the play.
Well, we'll be seeing more and more of that during the game. The Soviets are the opportunists. They'll float somebody up center, trying to get that quick breakaway pass.
Fetisov leaves it for Brian Leach. By Gosselin, but Miller is there, up ahead to Janney. Janney leads Bourbeau too far. Larianov puts it back into the neutral zone where Gusarov picks it up. His slap shot is wide. So the Soviets still without a shot on goal in the first 4 minutes of the game. Jeff Norton to Alan Bourbeau. Bourbeau off Millen's skate. Millen trying to pick up the loose puck, backhands it, it's wide. Gusarov gets it up ahead to Krutov. Krutov, Larionov, and Makarov, the number 1 Soviet line out there at the moment. The famed KLM line. Krutov is 9, Larionov is 11, Makarov is 24. So here comes Krutov. Skating in, picked up by Don Killian Brown. His shot, and Terreri got a piece of it for the save. Now they lose it in front. And through the slot, it's Granato picking it up for the United States as the Soviets for the first time put pressure on Terreri, their first shot on goal. Zagarov centering it, but Donatelli was ridden out of the play nicely by Stelnov. Up ahead to Krutov. He has it poke checked away, and he's offside as Larionov skates in over the blue line. 15-15 to play in the first period. No score in Calgary. The first period, the U.S. has just been whistled for an offside. Exactly 15 minutes to play in the period. No score. Again, Chris Terreri in the nets now. Visually offside, as we mentioned before. The puck has to precede any of the players across the line. The man at the bottom of the screen had come in across the line before the puck got to him. In that particular instance, it would be offside. Ken, your thoughts through the first 5 minutes of the game?
The U.S. team is playing, again, a much more sustainable game than they were the other night. They can continue to play this game pretty much the rest of the way. They're showing, again, moving up in the timely moments, but they're defending much more strongly.
Mike Eruzione, what was the mood at practice yesterday and as you saw the team arrive at the arena tonight?
Al, sorry, I didn't catch that.
The mood of this team at practice yesterday and as they arrived at the arena tonight.
Very relaxed. As a matter of fact, yesterday was team picture day, and the usual things that go on when a team is taking their picture. You know, guys putting little horns behind anybody's head, and they had a fun practice. Dave Peterson did not step out on the ice with the team yesterday. He watched from the bench, and the last drill they did, it took Coach Smith 10 minutes to set the drill up, and when it was all set up, he got off the ice and left the kids just standing there, and it was just a big joke.
Soviets in control. Homutov, number 15. Into Kamensky. He's checked by Janney. And able to pry it loose. Laviolette now involved. Back of the net along with Janney. Loose puck and the shot wide off the stick of Bwikov. Kept in for the moment by Kasatonov, number 7 at the point. In behind the net, Homolkov centers it. The shot wide by Buikov. He's had 2 good opportunities and has missed on both. Stick save by Carreri. And Janney takes the pressure off.
Well, there have been open men in the U.S. zone there, and the Soviets are not going to miss an awful lot of those. Shots that look the same if they are on Austrian sticks or on Norwegian sticks, they're going to miss the net. But somehow a shot that looks the same that's coming off a Soviet stick is going to end up in the net.
And that last call was for icing, as we said, from your own half of the rink across the opposition's goal line. There's the missed opportunity by Buikov. So the U.S. able to take the pressure off, but because of the infraction, the face-off comes back into the United States end. Raw explanation of the icing infraction. Back out to center ice now, Gusarov for the Soviets. Lomakin, number 23, back to Alexei Gusarov, Soviet defenseman. And in ahead on the right wing, skating through is Lomakin behind the net, looking for a centering pass, still in control. Now he leaves it for Kozebnikov, and he gets taken down, and the puck comes back the other way. It's Brown trying to get it up ahead to Bourbeau, and Granato picks up the puck, but the U.S. is offside. As Viktor Tikhonov, the Soviet coach, looks on. 13:20 to play in the first period with no score. Back after this from your local station.
More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
And the Soviets, too.
What the U.S. team also has to demonstrate tonight is that its full roster can play at this high a level. In the first 2 games, I think what has been demonstrated is the top line of Granato and Millen and Bourbeau can. The question is whether the other lines can play up to the pace of the game. And they've had some difficulties in those other nights, and they're going to need all the help that they can get tonight.
Young shot, glove save by Milnikov. Right now, the U.S. with Young and Leach, the defense pairing, and now the Steve Leach, Lane McDonald, Scott Fusco line comes out.
Well, a fairly long shot and a kind of an easy save for the goaltender Milnikov. Looking at the Soviet team, there are certain key players that they have. Right now, they've got their veteran line on. Larionov, Makarov, and Krutov, they've been together for several years. They've also got their veteran defense pair. They are not only their strength, but in the last year or so, they have been their weakness.
Steve Leach's shot is wide. He follows up into the corner. And the Soviets clear it, and up ahead on the breakaway, Makarov, he skates in, he shoots, he scores. The number 1 Soviet line, and they've been together for years. 2 of them played all the way back in the '80 Olympics. Sergei Makarov scores to make it 1-0 and pays the price as well.
Well, it's the kind of opportunistic style we were talking about. Fetisov catching Makarov, crossing at center. He's been the top scorer in the Soviet League for several years. Here you can see him again making a nice move to his forehand, forcing Chris Terreri to the ice.
12:37 remaining in the first period. The Soviets lead 1-0.
What are you doing, kid?
In commercial, Brian Leach whistled off for a tripping penalty, and 1:42 remaining in that penalty. So the Soviets with a power play. They have a man advantage here for the next 1:37 as they skate in over the blue line.
This is a big moment for the U.S. team now. Early in the game, down 1 goal. The Soviets have a chance to make it 2. The U.S. team needs to keep it to 1.
Biakin faking the slap shot into the corner now. Buikov checked into the boards by Gosselin. Puck comes off to Granato, and Tony comes back the other way for the U.S. Up ahead for Millen and into the Soviet zone. So they have effectively killed off nearly half the penalty. 1:05 now until Leach vacates the penalty box. Ilya Biakin skating in for the Soviets. From the corner, has his centering pass intercepted by Laviolette for the moment, but the Soviets maintain possession. Fetisov gets it over to Biakin. His shot, and a great save by Terreri because it went through the legs of Norton. And a scrap in front of the net.
A Chris Prairie not only making the save, but very importantly covering up the rebound. Now the Soviets are now moving their big line onto the ice again. The two particularly key players to look for are Krutov, number 9, and Fetisov, number 2. You can see the shot going right through the defenseman Norton's legs. The rebound going out, but coming right back to Chris Terreri.
1-0 Soviets on top. Leach in the penalty box for the next 45 seconds. The first penalty of the game. 11:01 left in the first period. The time remaining there on the penalty. This is Lariano, the very outspoken Igor Lariano. Up ahead to Fetisov. Fetisov tries to get it into the corner to Krutov, and it's picked off by Brown, and he clears it out to the neutral zone. And the U.S. has killed the first 1:45 of the penalty. As the clock ticks down, Leach will be out of the box in 11 seconds. Krutov over to Fetisov. Fetisov to Kasatonov, and he scores from the slot. With 3 seconds remaining in Leach's penalty, Kasatonov skating in from out in front of the net, puts it in to make it 2-0.
The U.S. team was finding themselves one pass behind. And when you get that way, you start running around. And all of a sudden, there's the open man, and in the crucial spot, Kasatonov coming in front, using the defenseman or Miller as a screen and right through Terreri's legs. This experienced line of the Soviet team, they used to come at you in waves, and now they come at you much more selectively. They're very surgical in their approach. They got the big goal, the opening goal of the game, by doing it that way. They did it the same way on the power play.
And that was the reaction of Brian Leach, who is ready to come out of the box in another 3 seconds. So the Soviets on top by a score of 2-0 in the first period. Chernik gets it up to Kozhevnikov. Off the stick of Lomakin, who gets taken down, and Scott Young tries to wrest control of it for the U.S. Loose behind the net, circling, and the shot and the save by Terreri.
The key in any game like this is what happens when you get into a situation.
When it comes to doing business worldwide, you got to think in global proportions.
9:40 left in the first period. 2-0 the Soviets on top and putting the pressure on here. Lomakin out to the point, shot in, and deflected off to the near side, where Corey Millen comes up with a puck for the U.S. Leading Granato. Soviets send it around to the near side. And we'll have a face-off in front of the Soviet net. As the net comes off, it's Magnets.
Well, as I started to say earlier, the key is really what happens right now. Now, obviously, when a team like the Soviets gets a quick 2-goal lead, the energy in the U.S. team starts to flag. Now, it becomes very important how they get through these next couple of minutes. Chris Terreri is probably going to be counted on to come up with a couple of big saves. The leaders on the team are going to have to really show some leadership qualities. They can get through the next couple of minutes. There's still a long game to go.
Number 30, Semyonov, sending it into the American end. Gosselin behind the net. Mike Eruzione, your thoughts at this point?
Well, Al, I think the interesting thing now is with the U.S. down 2-0, if they do fall behind 3-0, they're going to be in trouble because they're going to have to open up the game. And if they open up their game, that's going to give the Soviets a lot more chances. So that next goal is a big goal.
Crucial. Brian Leach trying to keep it in. And the Soviets get it out to center ice as Semyonov starts back. To the far board to Gusarov, and he sends it in around the boards where Brian Leach is there for the U.S. He drops it for Guy Gosselin. Gosselin up ahead off the stick of Donatelli. The U.S. now with a line change. The line centered by Craig Janney is out there now as Kamienski skates into the U.S. end. Scott Young with Janney for the American team. Young goes down. No penalty. Brown wanted the call and don't get it. Diekov now to Kamienski, and the save by Terreri. Good forechecking pressure by the Soviets as the U.S. tries to get it out of their own end. Peter Laviolette now lofting it out to center ice to alleviate momentarily the pressure.
What we have to remember about this Soviet team is that they are a vulnerable team. The point is whether you can make them vulnerable.
Flat shot is wide. All the way out to Kasatonov, who scored the last Soviet goal. He sends it into the corner. Brown chasing it along with Kamensky. 7.5 minutes to play. 2-0 Soviets here in the first period. And a penalty coming up on Miller, so the Soviets will have another power play opportunity as Miller is whistled for the penalty here at the 12:36 mark of the first period. The Soviets on top 2-0. Soviets, and a critical juncture in this game early on now as the Soviets have a power play with Miller in the box for the U.S.
Well, it was a bad penalty at a bad time. It was a deserved one. When your team is as vulnerable as the U.S. team is right now, you can't find yourself shorthanded.
And the KLM line is out there for the Soviets. Krutov, Larionov, and Makarov. Makarov with a puck. Couldn't get the shot away, but with good stick handling to Larionov, and back out to the blue line and shot in wide. Rebound, great save by Carreri. 1:23 left in the penalty, and the U.S. able to clear it. Icing is allowed when you're a man down. You don't have a whistle in that particular case because you are short a man. And the Soviets 5 for 10 thus far on power play opportunities in the Olympics. Millen sweeps in, comes up with the puck. Corley skates in, lost control of it, couldn't get the shot away. A minute left now in the penalty.
The U.S. team has had trouble killing penalties so far in the Olympics. A big moment.
Krutov dropping it to Biakin and taken away by Brian Leach. Up ahead to Tony Granato. His shot, a bouncing stick save. Granato goes down. Crowd wants another penalty call. And this time they'll get it. So with Miller in the box for the next 41 seconds, number 5, Gusarov, will be sent off with the Soviets.
Well, you can almost tell when a penalty is about to be called. That the U.S. team has been penalized a few times, and it just seems that the rhythm of the game is such that the next thing that is marginal that the other team will do will get penalized. Now, the U.S. team will have an opportunity in 41 seconds to go on the power play. They've been very strong on the power play so far in the Olympic tournament.
Each team now shy a man, so 4 skaters for each team for the next 41 seconds, and then the United States will have a man advantage for 1:19. 6:05 remaining, first period. Soviets on top 2-0. Steve Leach for the face-off for the United States, and ground shot, glove save by Milnikov. This is Yashin for the Soviets.
One thing about a 4-on-4 situation is that the Soviets are a very good open ice team. U.S. team is good as well, but the Soviets are better 4-on-4.
Svetlov, and the shot saved by Carreri. Donatelli sends it along the boards to Brown. 12 seconds left in the penalty to Miller, and then the U.S. will have a man advantage. Norton with it. Up ahead to his own blue line. Leach sends it in for Janney, and he has it taken away beautifully by Fetisov. Now Miller comes out of the box, and the United States has a man advantage for the next 1:13. And the Soviets send it back out to center ice. Scott Young up ahead to Miller, and he was in ahead of the puck. He was in over the blue line before the puck offside. 1:04 remaining now in the penalty to Gusarov.
Well, just as it is in any kind of game, there are rhythms to it, and you got to catch the right one. The U.S. team was down. Now they have a moment to close. They've got a little bit over a minute for a power play. This is a real opportunity for them.
Snuggerud and Janney are out there. Janney taking this face-off along with Kevin Miller. And this is Brian Leach, who's paired on defense here with Scott Young, the converted forward. Leach shoots it in around the boards. 52 seconds left in the U.S. power play. And back out it comes to center ice. So the American team has to regroup. Leach starts in with it, has it poke checked away. Up ahead, Sweekoff skating in, and Terreri luckily made the save as it trickled behind him and off to the left of the post. And then Terreri makes another save on the spinning shot with 4:33 remaining in the first period. 28 seconds left in the penalty. The period, 20 seconds remaining in the penalty. The U.S. with one last rush as Millen takes the pass from Leach. Corey skates into the corner and leaves it for Fusco. Out to Brian Leach. To Fusco again. Leach now from in front. His shot and a save by Milnikov with 6 seconds remaining in the Soviet penalty.
Which I find a little bit surprising, and it's only been in the last 20 seconds or so that the U.S. big line has been out on the power play. That for the bulk of the time it was another line. It was the Janney line. Before that, Millen was out on the ice, but when it was 4-on-4, this power play unit with Millen, Granato, and Bourbeau has been so strong. I'm a bit surprised they weren't out earlier to put the kind of pressure on that was necessary. You saw what they could do just in the 20 seconds that they've had so far.
2 seconds left in the penalty now. And the teams are now at equal strength. Deflected shot, rebound, great save that time by Milnikov. Saves it again. Heavy pressure from the U.S., but Milnikov is there. Loose puck in front. And Millen couldn't put it in, but the Soviets will get another penalty here. And again, the U.S. will have a man advantage as they'll send Igor Stelnov to the box.
Well, a big save by Milnikov. What he told his team right in that particular moment of action, that he is ready.
2-0. The Soviets on top. The teams each with 10 shots on goal. Igor Stelnov in the penalty box for the next 2 minutes. So now Janney, Snuggerud, and Miller are out there for the United States with Leach and Scott Young. From the faceoff, Brian Leach to Janney. To Leach again, and it comes out past the blue line. So the U.S. team has to come back and regroup again. Dave Snuggerud starts in. Sends it into the corner and around the boards where Kevin Miller chases it down, but he loses the puck, and Kasatonov is able to clear it to center ice. Brian Leach to Young. He comes in over the blue line. Sends it in around the boards. Janney chases it down. Picked up by Janney. He drops it for Snuggerud, but the Soviets can't clear. Kept in for the moment by Scott Young, and then Janney keeps it in. Now to Brian Leach. His shot, stick save by Milnikov.
Milnikov is gaining confidence with every save he makes.
And he's made 11 of them here in the first period with 2 minutes and 53 seconds to play in the period and 1:02 remaining in the penalty. And Kevin Miller in this line skates off as the U.S. now attempting to capitalize on this power play chance. Sending out Fusco with Steve Leach and Lane McDonald. The defensemen Norton and Brown. This is Brown with a puck. Youngest player on the team. Loses it at the Soviet blue line. And the Soviets are trying to take a few seconds off the clock as they clear it down into the U.S. end. Terreri leaves it for Brown. 42 seconds left in the power play. Norton. 2:28 remaining in the period. And the Soviets take the pressure off, clearing it to center ice. In the slot, nice move, and the shot wide by Svetlov. McDonald now coming back the other way. 20 seconds left in the penalty. Lane McDonald skates in. Nearly had it poke checked away. Norton keeps it in. His shot is wide. Along the near side, Leach knocks it down beautifully to Steve Leach. His shot is deflected wide to the right. 5 seconds left in the penalty. Brian Lee. Slap shot deflected. Penalty is over. Both teams are at full strength again. 1:45 to play in the period. So the Soviets effectively kill that penalty. And it's still 2-0 Soviets, 1:35 to play in the first period.
The U.S. team had good activity in the Soviet zone. They didn't get much action around the goaltender Milnikov.
And 1:28 to play in the period. In the first period, the United States in white, the Soviets in red. Soviets on top by a score of 2-0. Kamensky, number 13, winds up, slap shot, comes all the way out to the neutral zone, where the Soviets trying to move it ahead. Momutov, number 15, to Buikov. Buikov skates in, Millen breaks the play up. Corey Millen picks the puck up. Corey, only 5'7", very stocky, very fast. Draft rights owned by the New York Rangers. Gosselin sends it up ahead and shot in from the point around the boards with 30 seconds now remaining in the period. Into the U.S. end now, Gosselin sends it along the boards for Scott Young. 20 seconds left in the period. Alan Bourbeau now. Behind his own net to Scott Young. Time for one last charge. And in fact, they can't even get that away, as we'll have an icing call here and a face-off to come up in front of Terreri with 8 seconds to play in the period. And the frustrated Corey Millen, the U.S. has had several good opportunities here in the first period, but unable to cash in.
Well, I think the good news for the U.S. team at the moment is that for about the last 10 minutes, they've been very much into the flow of the game. They have kept pace with the Soviet team. They will go into the dressing room with some measure of encouragement, even though they're down 2-0.
8 seconds to play now in the first period. Janney sends it along the board. Kept in at the point, but time expires, and so the first period is over. The U.S. winds up out-shooting the Soviets 11-10. However, at the end of the first period of play, the Soviet Union on top by a score of 2-0. And so from the Saddle Dome, we'll send you back to the center now and check in with Jim McKay. At the Saddle Dome, Al Michaels with Ken Dryden, Mike Eruzione. We're back for the start of the second period. Soviet Union on top by a score of 2-0. And for the United States, it's the line with Granato, Bourbeau, and Millen. Starting the second period, Soviets in red, United States in white. Alan Bourbeau to Corey Millen. Millen back to Leach, and now up ahead to Guy Gosselin. Gosselin tries to send it in ahead and shoots it in around as Fetisov comes up with it for the Soviets. U.S. can't keep it in. Now it comes across the line to Bourbeau. Bourbeau taken out of the play by Fetisov, and Konstantinov is able to move it up to the point and then out for the Soviets. Good drop pass and the shot wide. Chris Terreri in the nets tonight. If you're joining us late, the Soviets scoring at the 7:23 mark in the first period. Makarov scoring. Loose puck in front here. Zagarud able to sweep it aside. Kasatonov scored at 9:41 for the Soviets. Krutov sends it in ahead off Makarov's stick. And Stevens able to bring it back to center ice where Krutov regains possession for the Soviets.
The U.S. team got themselves into defensive difficulty right at the start. They were in good control. Kevin Stevens just skated away from the play and allowed a very good chance on Chris Terreri.
In the first period, the U.S. team outshot the Soviets 11-10. Up ahead to McDonald. He's in, he scores!
It's just what the U.S. team needed. They needed some kind of evidence that this period could be different from the last one. A fine pass sending Lane McDonald into the open, and he found the open spot between Milnikov's legs.
Team USA goal, scored by number 9.
So the U.S. frustrated on so many good chances. Milnikov had a terrific first period, lets this one through, and it's 2-1, coming at the 1:30 mark of the second period. Lane McDonald, who played with Alan Bourbeau and Scott Fusco at Harvard. The Soviets on top. The U.S. now has outshot the Soviets 12-10. Steve Leach to Scott Young. Fusco kept in by the Soviets, and a great save by Carreri off the shot by Kamensky.
Important save by Carreri.
Fusco in over the blue line. Laviolette keeps in. He shoots. It's blocked in front. Stevens and McDonald were there. McDonald couldn't backhand it. Back it comes to the neutral zone.
The U.S. team has to watch now that they don't get too carried away. They've got to play with discipline as well as with energy.
Vetlock skating in. His shot deflected through the crease. Kamensky written out of the play. Loose puck picked up by McDonald and cleared to center ice and beyond.
The Soviets are an outstanding team in turning the energy against you. They trap you right in. They find a man up the middle.
Chernik sends it up ahead to Lomakin. Poke checked away nicely by Miller. Up ahead to Janney. He fakes a slap shot. Now Miller's slap shot off the pants is wide. 3 minutes into the second period. 2-1 Soviets. Lomakin now skates in. Trying to get it over to Kozevnikov. Into the corner. Kozevnikov checked by Norton. Janney scrapping for it. Now Norton takes control of the puck. Jeff Norton skating out of his own end and sending it into the corner. Line change for the U.S. as Granato comes out with Millen and Bourbeau. And the number one line out there for the Soviets. This is Larionov. Granato takes the puck away, and then a penalty coming up on Larionov. As he sends Granato to the ice, the United States will have a man advantage for the next 2 minutes with 16:33 to go in the second period. And we'll return to the Saddle Dome right after this word from your local station.
This is AB.
Clear it into the U.S. end. U.S. with a power play opportunity for the next 1 minute and 45 seconds. So the Americans with a man advantage as Scott Young sends it over to Brian Lee. Now to Young.
The U.S. has their top power play unit on now. It's been very successful so far in the Olympics.
And Millen was in ahead of the play over the blue line, offside. 1:33 remaining in the penalty to Larionov. And let's get a comment from Mike Eruzione.
Yeah, one thing that was said between the periods from Coach Peterson that he was very pleased with their performance, thought they played real well, but thought they were a little too conservative and wanted them to pick the pace up. They have so far. They seem to be skating a little quicker with a little more enthusiasm than they did in that first period.
And they have scored the only goal of the second period. A man advantage for the next 1:33. Millen on the faceoff. He's flanked by Granato and Fusco. Young now skates in, picked up at the blue line, and the puck had come back out over the blue line and then taken in again by Granato, and that's the reason for the offside. 15:59 to go in the period, 1:26 left in the penalty. Had stolen a pass and had come in alone and then had lost the puck as it slithers through the crease. And the Americans now send it back the other way as Leach to Millen. Millen to Granato. His shot, great save by Milnikov. And cleared out. Fetisov now. Taken out of the play by Fusco, who sends it to Brian Leach. 45 seconds left in the penalty. Brian Leach kicks all the way and his shot saved. Rebound saved. Millen back of the net to Brian Leach out in front. His shot is wide. 35 seconds left in the penalty. Young sends it in around the boards to Fusco. To Corey Millen. Brian Leach taps it back to Millen. Now Leach from the blue line breaks his stick. And the Soviets have a 2-on-2 and Leach is without a stick. And the shot is off Leach. Leach went down to block it with his pad, with his leg. The U.S. with a man advantage, but Leach still without a stick. 6 seconds left in the penalty. Shot in from the point, knocked down. Millen gets it up ahead to Miller, and Miller is taken out of the play. Janney following. Penalty is over. Teams are at equal strength. Brown shoots it in from the point. Bouncing puck. Skitters through the crease. Miller knocked down by Gusarov. Picked up by Okerlund. Todd Okerlund to Miller. Okerlund trying to get control again. Janney there to help out. 14 minutes left in the period. And cleared out to center ice. Larionov's shot blocked by Norton. Soviets on top by a score of 2-1. U.S. with the only goal here in the second period as Janney skates in. Janney ridden out of the play. Loose puck taken by Svetlov. Svetlov coming in. Brown picks him up. And the shot by Bleachkov and a great save by Terreri.
There's some incredible action in the last 2 or 3 minutes at both ends of the ice.
Donatelli, drop pass, slap shot, save by Milnikov. 13:20 remaining in a furious second period. 2-1 Soviets. States and the Soviet Union meeting in the Olympics for the first time since that night in 1980 when Mike Eruzione scored in the third period. Final was 4-3. Dave Peterson was a high school coach at the time. He was an assistant in '84 when the U.S. finished 7th in Sarajevo. The United States has outshot the Soviet Union 16-11 through the first period and 7 minutes of the second. 13:05 to play in the second period. And a good part of this period has been played in the Soviet end.
Well, it's been a good start for the U.S. team in this second period. They're starting to build up confidence. If they can keep it going a little bit longer, then they'll start to create a little bit of doubt in the Soviets' minds. And that's what any upset needs.
Omutov was taken down by Gosselin. Risky pass, deflected, and then Gosselin winds up with the puck in his uniform, in his jersey, with 12:39. Art Berglund is the general manager of the U.S. Olympic team. Watching this team through its 60-game pre-Olympic schedule and now Game 3 here in Calgary. And let's check in with Mike Eruzione. Mike?
Yeah, well, another thing that Coach Peterson talked about between the periods was he wanted to keep the Soviet players out of the middle, force them to carry the puck wide along the boards.
Leach shoots it in and offside. And again, the United States in Group B, the Soviets are unbeaten at 2-0. West Germany won today, by the way, so they are now 3-0. The U.S. and Czechoslovakia, as the day began, were tied for third, and Czechoslovakia won, so the Americans would need a victory to remain in a tie for third place. 3 of the 6 teams will advance to the medal round. Even if the United States loses this one, they would still be eligible to advance to the medal round with a victory over Norway, and then a crucial game would come up on Sunday night against West Germany, which would perhaps determine the third entrance in the medal round. All that to be discussed as we go along. But right now the puck is taken away at the blue line, and then the pass is behind number 22, Kozhevnikov, fortunately for the American defense, and the Soviets have to regroup.
That's the sort of play that has killed the U.S. in the game tonight and also in the game against Czechoslovakia. It is the kind of play they need to avoid. The Soviet team will not mess up many chances like that.
In over the right side, Kasatonov sends it into the U.S. end, and he's taken down. And we're going to have a penalty coming up on the United States with 11:43 remaining in the second period. 2-1 Soviets.
Right team, number 9, hooking.
Been sent off for hooking at 8:17. The Soviets now with a man advantage. They lead 2-1. Time left in the period, 11:43.
And the Soviets have the unit on right now that has scored both the Soviet goals.
One of them by Kasatonov, the other by Makarov. The 2 men have just handled the puck. Larionov now. Kasatonov to Makarov. This is the stable KLM line out there. And Kasatonov, the defenseman, sends it in, and it's saved by Terreri.
This is a time when Chris Terreri has to come up very big. He's a very important man at the moment.
Krutov to Fetisov. He sends it in, and from the slot, it's backhanded. Another great save by Terreri. Kasatonov couldn't get the shot away. Makarov has it saved by Terreri. Great save. 1:24 left in the penalty.
U.S. team, when they move on a Soviet player.
And Kasatonov scores off the pass. Slap shot by Kasatonov off the pass, his second goal of the game.
Well, it was a stoppable shot. It was unobstructed, undeflected. Here you can see the action around the Soviet net first. The puck goes back to Fetisov. And then across to his partner, to Kasatonov, who just lets it go right through Chris Terreri's legs. So Terreri has to provide for the rest of this game. It's not only the big save.
Soviets on top by a score of 3-1. Teams at equal strength as Svetlov with a beautiful pass and a great save by Terreri off the shot by Yashin. Leach trying to clear it, and the Soviets able to keep it in. Yashin gets taken down by Young, and it's sent down the length of the ice, where Milnikov leads it for Byakin.
Chris Terreri making another outstanding save. But again, what he has to be able to do, and it's in the nature of being a goaltender, is you've got to provide the consistency. You make the big save, but then you make the routine saves as well. You deliver a message to your team that everything is in hand. You deliver a message to your opponent that they should be discouraged and frustrated. There was the outstanding save. Now it's up to Chris Terreri to provide very solid goaltending.
9:58 remaining in the second period. So the game half over. Soviets on top. 3-1. Each team has scored once here in the period. And out to center ice, Kamensky can't control. Brown takes it for the United States. McDonald sends it into the corner. Fusco chases it down. And offside. 9:43 remaining in the second period.
The prize is...
Top by a score of 3-1. Kamensky's shot is off the side of the net. Komutov with it. He's checked by Gosselin. And it's Terreri trying to cover up. Weekoff's shot, and finally Terreri is able to cover up after the save.
In 1980, the U.S. team was able to upset the Soviets by staying close to them the whole game. They weren't necessarily ahead. In fact, they weren't ahead until at the end of the game. But they stayed close. They stayed close. They discouraged the Soviets. They started to frustrate them. The game started to wind down, and the upset became possible. But the U.S. team has to demonstrate now is that they can continue to stay close.
The American team has outshot the Soviets 17-16. Kasatonov has it deflected, and it's cleared out by Bourbeau. But the Soviets come back as it's shot in from the right wing by Kozyevnikov offside. The U.S. Olympic hockey team, a very young team. The oldest player on the team, Scott Fusco, is 25. Quite in contrast, obviously, to the Soviets, who have 6 players who were there in Lake Placid, and several others as well from 1984.
Well, that is their strength, but it is also their weakness if you can come to exploit it. The players that have really let them down in the last year have been those veteran players. Krutov has not been the same player. Fetisov has not been the same player. They are their leaders, and those are the ones you have to make vulnerable. You have to get into their minds, get after their confidence.
Two-line pass offside, though the Americans contend that it was deflected at center ice, and that shouldn't have been the call. And now the referee, Ante Koskinen of Finland, letting somebody have a piece of his mind.
Well, I think the call was missed. It did appear to be deflected, and it was just simply a mistake.
And so the face-off at the U.S. blue line. Millen facing off against Chernik. Granado over to Young. Across to Laviolette. Up ahead to Millen. Millen sending it for Bourbeau, and the skittering puck over the top of his stick. Collected by Laviolette. Young sends it along the boards, but Gustafsson on pace control only momentarily. Now Millen skating in. Millen with Granado. Millen with Bourbeau now. Bourbeau puts it in!
Remarkable second effort by Bourbeau. It looked like he was being hauled down and out of the play. And the puck was rolling seemingly harmlessly into the corner, and somehow Bourbeau got his stick on it.
Granado was out in front of him. Bourbeau came up on the side and falling down, able to put it in.
Nice play by Corey Millen, waiting to find the open Bourbeau. And watch, he looks like he's completely tied up. He's on the ice and just shoves it in. In many ways, if anything else had happened in that place, he wouldn't have been able to score. Milnikov would have been able to stop it.
And we'll be back after this from your local station. Pressure on, a good save by Milnikov while we were away for the moment. Now a whistle for offside with 7:30 to play in the second period. And the score at the moment is just what it was at the end of the second period at Lake Placid. 3-2 Soviets.
Well, a fine play by Corey Millen, who slowed down the pace of it, waited for Bourbeau to get into the opening, and then Bourbeau did the rest. This is a time when the Soviet team is their most dangerous. When the other team gets an awful lot of energy going, they can turn the energy right against them with that one quick opening pass. The U.S. team has to play with its head now as well as with its heart.
3-2 Soviets, 7:20 to play in the second period. Leach scrapping for it, gets it up to Lane McDonald. McDonald sends it cross ice for Steve Leach. And he has it poke-checked away by Stelnoff at the blue line. Terreri now sweeps it along the boards. Svetlov for the Soviets. Gosselin rides him out of the play. Steve Leach in behind the net over to Brian Leach. No relation, not even spelled the same way. Guy Gosselin. Kept in by Kravchuk. Now along the near side, it's McDonald who gets it back out to center ice. Lane McDonald, who scored the first goal, is from the Harvard connection tonight. McDonald and Bourbeau scoring. Now Brian Leach skating in. Over to Janney. Janney taken out of the play. Okerlund goes down. Homotov on the near side. Now to Yashin. Back come the Soviets. He's picked up by Laviolette. And Laviolette able to poke it away off the glass. 6:10 to play second period. Out in front. Wyckoff fanned on the shot. Konstantinov's shot is off the glass above the net.
Well, the first period was very much of a strategic period. This period is all energy.
Under 6 minutes now to play in the second period. Soviets on top. 3-2. The U.S. has outshot them 19-16. Janney leaves it for Okerlund. Okerlund drop pass to Miller. Back out to the point. Young keeps it in. Now taken by Fakisov. Up ahead to Wyckoff. Homotov. Beautiful pass. Kamensky scores. The Soviets so adept at getting out of their own end quickly with a crisp, sharp passing. And they lead now 4-2.
The Soviets again breaking quickly, but also what happened?
Top with 5.5 minutes to play in the second period. And you were saying, Ken?
Well, the one problem that the U.S. team had, and I'm sure that we'll see it on the replay, is defensively they weren't in too bad position on that play, but the defense, again, were puck watching. Especially Scott Young, and he left the open man for the shot.
Chernik has his shot deflected by Norton. Shot in from the point. Saved by Terreri. Norton strapped for it with Granado behind the net. Collected by Brown for the moment. Brown kicks it along the board. And now it comes out toward the blue line. Biankin missing. And back comes the U.S. Bourbeau sending it up ahead for Millen, and it's poked away off his stick by Gusarov. And then Millen goes into the boards. Crowd wants a penalty. They don't get it. Gosselin knocks it down. Makarov gets taken down. And Donatelli sends it up ahead to center ice. Makarov takes over, back to Biakin. To Makarov. The Soviet veteran skating in, hounded by Gosselin. Looking for a centering pass. Looking to stuff it in. Saved by Carreri.
There's too much out-of-control action around the U.S. net. The Soviet players one-on-one are beating the U.S. players. It means that it takes somebody out of his regular position to chase, and then all hell breaks loose. The U.S. team has to be able to control the one-on-one.
And now it's Svetlov. Laviolette is there, and the puck hits the side of the net. Laviolette able to break up the play, but Lariana puts it in. Igor Larionov putting it in after Terreri had made the initial save.
What happens when the bodies start flying?
.344 remaining in the period.
USA. Stopping pucks, going left and right. You know the crew can flat out play. When the pucks stop flying, there's no denying Spud celebrates with Bud Light. He knows everything else is just a light.
This Bud Light is out of sight, my little Spudsky.
Soviets on top by a score of 5-2. With 3.5 minutes to play now in the second period. Dasatonov skates in, saved by Carreri. So the Soviets putting all the pressure on now in the last 5 minutes, and we'll take a look at the last goal by that man, Lariano.
Well, it's what we were talking about earlier. When all of a sudden you get behind in the play, then everybody starts chasing. And bodies are flying everywhere, and there's going to be people that are wide open. You get taken out of your own position to do somebody else's job, and then usually it ends up in your own net. The U.S. team has shown very little defensive discipline again tonight, and it really has been their downfall. Just as they get back into the game with the kind of energy that they have offensively, they need some kind of discipline defensively, or else at some point that energy is going to get discouraged.
5-2 as they do some repair work on the netting. Larianov scoring his first goal in the 3 games. Terreri in the nets for the U.S. tonight, played sparingly with the New Jersey Devils of the NHL last season. 3:27 left in the second period. In the second period, the Soviets on top by a score of 5-2. And coming in over the blue line and then taken out of the play by Brown as Norton gets it ahead to Janney. And we're going to have a penalty coming up on the U.S.
A penalty often results when one player doesn't take his check and somebody else has to do it for him. He's behind the play and the penalty results. You can see it happening. The Soviet player breaks into the open. He has to get ridden off by somebody else, and the penalty gets called.
Jeff Norton, hometown, Acton, Massachusetts, plays at the University of Michigan. And he goes off here, and Dave Peterson's team in a real bind now, down by 3 and down a man with 2:46 to play in the second period. Biakin didn't get much on that shot. And it's not cleared out. It's kept in by Biakin. Over to Homutov. And Biakin again not getting much on that. Second.
I think he's got a rubber stick.
Yeah, it looks like it. Kamensky, and it's Bekoff in front, who couldn't get the shot away. And finally, Leach gets a hold of the puck and clears it the length of the ice. 1:18 remaining in the penalty. 2 minutes now left in the second period. Biakin picked up by Millen. Shot comes in on Carreri, and Carreri sends it the length of the ice in his best Ron Hextall imitation.
The U.S. team is making the big plays. Now they've got to show that they can make the little plays as well.
50 seconds remaining in the penalty. 1:35 remaining in the period. Laviolette sending it in. Recapturing it. Backhanding wide. And Vyacheslav Fetisov. Nice pass up ahead to Larionov. He sends it to Krutov. Back to Larionov behind the net. He sends it out in front. Slapped in, and it goes in. Fetisov didn't get much on it. It was almost like throwing a changeup by Terreri. And it's 6-2.
Now the wrong goal at the wrong moment. Let's just see what happened on it, whether it was obstructed in any way. But it comes out to Fetisov, who is usually a very hard shot, but he really mishits it. And I think Chris Terreri, as you suggested, was expecting the high hard one. He had a clear view of the shot.
1:14 remaining in the second period. So Fetisov with the goal, and who knows if the rumors come true and Fetisov and Makarov play in the National Hockey League sometime in the future. Their rights owned by New Jersey, and a penalty coming up here on Janney. So the Soviets have just capitalized on one power play, and another power play coming up as Janney gets sent off to the penalty box.
The penalty happened for the same reason the goals are happening. The U.S. players are not in the right position there. You can see Janney should have been with his man. He was behind him. He had to hook him and haul him down.
1:02 left in the period. Let's check in again with Jim McKay.
All right, Al, so the Soviet...
Okay, Jim. Here in the third period, Lane McDonald on a power play scored for the U.S. at the 3:15 mark, and Scott Fusco has just scored, assisted by Laviolette and Gosselin. 13:26 to play in the game, and the United States has pulled to within 2. Soviet Union on top by a score of 6-4. Teams are skating at equal strength, and the Corey Millen line is out there right now with Gosselin keeping it in from the point. Now Makarov takes the puck for the Soviets. Skates in over the blue line. He leaves it for Krutov, and Makarov's shot hits the post and goes up into the seats.
Well, a costly 2-on-1 there, but fortunately the puck hit the post and went into the crowd.
Let's go back to the third U.S. goal.
Brian Leach making the pass. You can see the rebound come right onto McDonald's stick and finds the open side. That made it 6-3. And here's the goal that brings the U.S. to within 2. Scott Fusco with the puck. It just meets Milnikov with a high shot. The U.S., the second period ended with the U.S. team in disarray. And right now, all of a sudden, the feeling is starting to come back. You can sense the energy in the crowd.
And the USA chant with 13 minutes remaining in the game. Soviets on top 6-4. The number 1 line, Larionov. Beautiful pass, but offside. Makarov in over the blue line ahead of the puck with 12:47 remaining in the game. And Dave Peterson's team now down 6-4. Play resuming. The United States and the Soviet end. Donatelli centered it. Nobody was out in front. Now slapped in by Laviolette. Broken up by Humutov. Fetisov now for the Soviets, the team captain. Sends it into the United States end where Scott Young picks the puck up for Team USA. Peter Laviolette picked up as he comes into the Soviet end. Steve Leach trying to trap in the corner to pry it loose with Laviolette. And it comes out toward the point where Kamensky sends it out to center ice. Fetisov loses the puck. Steve Leach, his shot high. And Wyckoff clears it out.
What I want to see is the Soviet team put under real pressure for any length of time. This team is a beatable team. It is a destructible team, but only if they get put under pressure, only if they keep getting frustrated.
Scott Fusco lost his stick. As Brown comes back in for the United States, he gets picked up at the blue line, shoots very wide. And the Soviets clear it. Wikoff in ahead, drop pass, and Tereri makes the save and has to cover up as the puck came loose momentarily off the shot by Svetlov. 11:09 to play in the game.
In the next couple of minutes, the U.S. team can get a goal, and you just put some doubt in the Soviet players' eyes. They had the big lead, and all of a sudden, what they had already chalked up on the scoreboard becomes something in question. Then it becomes a game.
6-4 the score. What do you think, Mike Aruzio?
Well, Kenny Dryden, if you're Dave Peterson, do you go to 3 lines and 4 defensemen right now?
Yes, I think I would, Mike. At this time of the game, 11 minutes or so to go, you got to go with your best.
Craig Janney in with Kevin Miller. Miller sends it back out to the blue line, kept in by Gosselin. He shot wide, and then Okerlund is there, puts it in! Scoring, and there's bedlam at the Saddle Dome now.
Well, that was just great effort by Todd Okerlund. It looked as if the puck was covered in the crease. You can see the shot. It misses the net and comes back out. Now everything looks under control, but the puck was loose. The referee saw that it was loose, did not blow his whistle quite properly, and now it is a 1-goal game.
Todd Okerlund, the son of the famed wrestling announcer Mean Gene Okerlund, a man who did not dress for the first 2 games. In fact, a lot of people thought he might be one of the cuts coming into the Olympics, but he survived. He dresses tonight for the first time. He makes the score 6-5 with 10:52 to play in the game. So the U.S. team, down by 4 going into the period, is now down by 1.
The U.S. team is just starting to believe, and the Soviet team is just starting to doubt.
Corbeau can't keep it in. And they scrap for it on the near side. The USA chant enveloping the Saddle Dome. Makarov with the puck for the Soviets. To Larionov. Their KLM line, the number 1 line, is out there now. Makarov centers it. It comes out to Biakin. He goes to the corner. He's taken out of the play by Granato. And then Young goes down. The crowd wanted a penalty, and they don't get that called. Krutov. It's Leach who intercepts in front. And Bryan comes back up ahead to Granato. Biakin tries to clear it out. It's Kempton at the point. Line change for the American team now. As Krutov starts back the other way. Snuggerud is out there along with Stevens for the U.S. and Snuggerud intercepts for the moment. Now sent back out to center ice. Stevens gets it ahead to Snuggerud. His shot is wide.
Well, the game is starting to lose control. And this is it going in the U.S. favor at the moment.
Stevens. The Soviet defenseman, Kasatonov, lost his stick just for the moment. He picks it back up. Snuggerud. Knocked down by Brown. Kept in. Out in front and in the slot. No Soviet was there, and it's flipped up into the seats by Snuggerud. 9:10 remaining in the game, 6-5. Minutes to play. The Soviets on top. 6-5 after going into the third period, leading 6-2. Kamensky wheeling in the corner. And Tereri sweeps to the side, picked up by Steve Leach. Kamensky intercepts at center ice. To Homotov. Knocked away in front, loose puck in front, and picked up by Lane McDonald. McDonald, who scored the team's first goal, sends it into the Soviet end.
What I've been waiting for all game is for the U.S. team to put on enough pressure so that the Soviet team can start to self-destruct. But just as they would get them into that state, they give up an easy goal. If they can just get them in that state now, they can help them beat themselves. They need They need both right now, their effort, and they need the Soviets to start shooting themselves in the foot.
Brian Leach to Janney. Now Gosselin from the point. Slap shot goes skittering through the crease. Linden Miller fighting for it along the boards with Makarov. The puck is still loose. Now it comes out to Brian Leach. His shot, Janney is there, can't get the rebound. Shot back in by Leach. I think it hit the post. It hit the post. Makarov able to get it over to Larionov. And they take the pressure off for the moment. Now Gosselin shooting it in. Save by Milnikov.
Very confident Milnikov is not looking that confident at the moment, nor is the rest of that Soviet team.
You hear the chant with 7:12 remaining. Millen skating in, leaves it for Granato. Slap shot save. Milnikov with 2 big saves in the last 45 seconds.
This Soviet team has had a lot of problems in the last year. They lost in the Izvestia tournament. They lost in the World Championships. They lost in the Canada Cup. They are starting to get the feeling that they can be beaten, and they're starting to think about that right now. There you can see the shot. I think it probably tipped off Janney and off the goalpost.
7:05 remaining in the third period. The Soviets on top 6-5. U.S. team has just taken a timeout, 7:05 to play. There's no provision for overtime in international hockey. A tie is a tie, so that much time left in the game.
Very interesting that of late, the Soviet team has gone from 4 lines to 3 lines, and it's something they very rarely do. They like to keep their whole roster going, and obviously they're sensing a weakness there. They're sensing the U.S. team coming on. The U.S. team is still going with 4 lines. I guess Coach Dave Peterson feeling that what he needs more than anything else now is the energy from everybody, and that what he doesn't want is fatigue to set in. I would suspect, however, that as the clock goes down to about 5 minutes or 4 minutes, he may go down to 3 lines.
Snuggerud, Donatelli, and Stevens forming this line. Most of the last 10 minutes have been played in the Soviet end. Snuggerud shoots, and another pad save. And out it comes to center ice. Milnikov, 3 big saves now in a 60-second span. Svetlov comes in over the blue line. His pass behind Yashin. Taken away by Snuggerud. He comes back with Donatelli on the right wing. Line change to the U.S. now. And an icing call.
Well, Al, another good example of how in any game, in any sport, any team can be beaten. The team that is confident, composed, arrogant, champions year after year, all of a sudden they can start to look ordinary, and unbelievably ordinary. And that's what's happening to the Soviet team right now. The poise, the composure, all of the things that they've done so well for so long are starting to be put into doubt.
6 minutes and 31 seconds remaining in the game. Scott Young for the United States. To Fusco. He sends it up ahead to Steve Leach. Steve Leach is out there with McDonald and Fusco on this line. Young and Laviolette are this defense pairing. And it's Kravchuk for the Soviets, who sends it into the U.S. end. Kamensky gets there, so there's no icing, as the Soviet player got there first. Now out ahead to center ice to Stelnov. .550 left in the game. Scott Young.
The game is just taking a bit of a breather now. There's still plenty of time for the energy to come back.
Young up ahead to Miller, but he loses the puck. Here comes Fetisov reeling in, backhanding it through the crease. And Janney picks it up, but he can't control it. Krutov takes it away for the moment. Janney hounds him. Laviolette gets checked by Krutov, and it's sent up ahead to Miller. Fetisov up ahead to Makarov. Makarov sends it back out to Larionov, and he wheels it around the boards. Terreri is there. up along the boards, rolling along the top of the board and underneath the glass, and back out to center ice to Fetisov. Makarov, loose at the blue line, picked up by Norton. He has to wait for Jamie to get onside. Then he dumps it into the corner. The Millen, Granato, and Bourbeau line is out there. Millen, slapper, knocked down in front. Bourbeau couldn't sweep it in, and it's cleared out to the blue line and beyond. And Krusov picked up by Norton. Beautiful play by Norton to take the puck away. But Konstantinov gets it up ahead to Krusov. Krusov's shot is wide. 4:15 left in the game. Millen skating in with Granato. Backhander save. Granato has it. He tries to send it through the crease. Donatelli behind the net, strapping for it. Millen is there for control. Nobody in front. Now Leach knocked down in front. Lariano picks the puck up.
Well, as you can see, the puck is just going everywhere. The game is out of control. And again, that is to the U.S. advantage.
3:46 left in the game. Soviets on top, 6-5. Semyonov can't handle it. Brian Leach to Stevens, offside. Steve Leach was in ahead of the play. 3:34 to play. Mike Eruzione, your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. This is for sure what we talked about this team throughout the year. They play with great emotion. There's 3 minutes and 34 seconds left to go in the game. You can take all the ability that these athletes have and put them in the closet, because it now comes down to emotional game. And I like the way the U.S. is playing, and they're playing with that type of emotion.
3:34 left in the game. We'll have another face-off. Dave Peterson letting Ante Koskinen, the Finnish referee, know exactly how he feels.
Well, Dave Peterson wanted to get a late change, and the referee said it was just simply too late for the change to be made.
Still not for the Soviets. He can't clear it out. He is checked by Steve Leach. Kravchuk sends it up ahead. Too far and into the U.S. zone, and Young gets there, and an icing call from their half of the ice over the opposing goal line. And that's the call, icing, sending it back to the face-off circle in front of the Soviet netminder, Milnikov, who, despite allowing 3 goals in this period, has made some tremendous saves.
Yes, he has. And it certainly is a roller coaster ride when you watch the U.S. hockey team play. There are very few dull moments. There are annoying moments, there are thrilling moments, and altogether there are compelling moments.
And a roller coaster ride for Peterson, able to give you a smile with 3:09 to play, and the U.S. dominating the third period in shots on goal and in the scoring as well. It was 6-2, remember, at the end of the second period. 3:06 remaining in the game.
Just about every time that the Millen, Granato, and Bourbeau line has been out there, they have caused the Soviets real trouble. They are out there again.
Bourbeau sends it up to center ice. Stelnoff shoots it back in. Norton is out there on defense with Brown. Bourbeau, Millen, and Granato form the U.S. line. Sent into the Soviet end. Cleared along the boards, back out to center ice for Brian Leach. Takes it, and Leach shoots it into the Soviet end before Millen had vacated the zone. Totori's offside, and the clock stops with 2:33.
Coach Viktor Tikhonov has had this sort of thing happen to him an awful lot in the last year, and he's somebody who is not a very good bench coach. He's a good practice coach, but he's been around long enough that he seems a little bit tired, and he seems a little bit slow. Right in back of him, very interestingly enough, is the head of the Soviet Hockey Federation, Koloskov. Now, you would not have seen a second man, a non-coach in that area about a year ago. Koloskov has started to take over.
And as far as strategy is concerned, Dave Peterson has to keep his eye on the clock, too, because he has to think about pulling Terreri and getting the extra skater up front for the U.S. That much time left, 2:12. Makarov has it for the Soviets. He skates in with Leach on defense. The drop pass for Krutov. circling to Fetisov, skating all the way in, and he scores. Vyacheslav Fetisov. Straight in, backhands it in, and the Soviets lead it 7-5.
It's what the Soviet team does so well. They attack well, but they attack with depth. They bring up their players from behind, and unless the defending team is very aware.
College basketball.
From early season excitement to
and it's shot in by Miller. Big game in terms of advancing to the medal round.
There's a little bit of a problem there, and it went between the Soviet player Byakin and the U.S. player Norton. They're exchanging little slashes with a stick, and Byakin went down.
And Antti Koskinen, the referee for Finland, who has drawn the ire of Dave Peterson tonight, attempts to get it sorted out.